Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm seeing the numbers tick up right now, so we're going to give it another minute or so, and then we'll jump in. Hi, for those of you just joining, we're just waiting for some more folks to hop on. I'm seeing the participants numbers continue to creep up, which is great. We have a lot of folks registered today, so we're expecting a nice turnout, and we'll get started in just a second. Okay, let's jump in. We're one after the hour. I'm Brittany McDonough. I'm a managing director at BarkerGilmore. I also lead our healthcare and life sciences practice. We have a great session prepared for today. Our topic is centered around how to maximize one's earning potential. This is certainly a topic that is top of mind for many of the attorneys that I speak to every day, especially when there isn't necessarily a clear path forward within their organization. I get the question a lot, how can I earn more money short of leaving my company and going somewhere else? And so our speakers today are going to share some really thoughtful strategies for increasing your compensation that are really relevant at any point in your career, both for legal professionals as well as compliance professionals. So today's session is going to be recorded. For those of you who registered, you'll receive a notification once the recording becomes available. It typically takes about 2 weeks for that to happen. And at that point, it'll be added to our library of on-demand webinars that can be found on the BarkerGilmore website. You'll also be able to see right there all of the previous webinars that we've hosted. And just a couple housekeeping items. Here's a sneak peek for what's to come next. We have another session planned for October on giving and receiving difficult feedback. And then you'll see for the next 2 months what's to come. So be on the lookout and pre-register for those webinars as well. We are hoping that this will be a very interactive conversation today. So we encourage you to submit questions. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button. And you'll want to use that to submit questions throughout the presentation. Our speakers will be keeping their eyes on that, and they'll try to take the questions as we go along. There's also a function to thumbs up a question. So if someone asks something that you're particularly interested in, you can do that thumbs up, and that will signal to our speakers that that question is of particular interest to the audience. So be sure to use that. All right, and without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our speakers today. I'm with Haydee Olinger, who is a senior advisor here at BarkerGilmore, and our guest speaker, Tina Dekker.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm excited that we have this many participants. I'm Haydee Olinger. I'm the former Global Chief Compliance Officer at McDonald's Corporation. As Brittany just said, I am currently a senior advisor with BarkerGilmore, where I assist companies in assessing and either enhancing or structuring their compliance programs. And I also provide executive coaching. In addition, I sit on 2 public boards listed on the NASDAQ and am on the board of trustees for DePaul University. I am very happy to have Tina join me today, and I'll let Tina introduce herself before we start the session. Tina?
Great, thank you, Haydee. Very happy to be here, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Tina Dekker. I'm currently the general counsel for Meijer, which is a retail chain of superstores and grocery concepts in the Midwest. I currently oversee the legal, compliance, and sustainability functions for Meijer. And as Haydee mentioned, I previously worked with Haydee at McDonald's. I had been with McDonald's for 14 years. I started out in the litigation department and held a variety of roles within the litigation department, including spending 7 years as an expatriate as the general counsel for McDonald's China, and then also for McDonald's UK and Ireland. And then also while I was at McDonald's, I proudly served as the chair of the Global Women's Leadership Network as well. So really excited to be here today to share some tips.
Thank you, Tina. We chose this topic for today's webinar because there is certainly a lot of angst amongst employees these days in the business world. There was the Great Resignation. I think it's still going on. A record 47.4 million workers voluntarily quit their jobs in 2021. More workers are saying, and I've been reading about this recently, that they are quiet quitting. So they're just doing enough to do their job. Apparently that's not a new concept, but it certainly has received a lot of attention lately, and with many news outlets. Employees, I read recently, are pushing back on return to office initiatives. Apparently many companies were asking employees to return back after Labor Day. And employees are pushing back. And interestingly enough, employers are listening to some of that because, they can't afford to lose employees at this time. And certainly, as you all know, we're currently facing a potential recession. So frankly, now is the time for you to decide on how you can maximize your earning potential while taking stock of what you want your future to be. Many of the things that are impact the value an employee puts on their business is either the career, your job, or your salary. So over the next few minutes, Tina and I will discuss tips you can use to assess your situation and your skills, along with a way to maximize your earning potential and frankly, facing reality. As Tina said, we worked together, and I particularly was very fascinated by Tina's path at McDonald's because she did do a number of things, as you heard her say, and a lot of that was just, I think of that as the building block for that next thing she wanted to do. And today she is the general counsel at Meijer. So, it can be done. I myself went through a path where I started off in real estate legal at McDonald's, moved into international, moved back to the US business, and frankly, all of that culminated into my being asked to become the first global chief compliance officer at the organization. So I just want to start, first of all, with what I call assess your current situation. Okay. Maximizing your earning potential requires that you invest time and effort in this quest. Let's put it that way. Investing in yourself is by doing your homework, and studying your situation is very important. And I look at this as twofold. There is a macro level, which I defined as your company, your law firm, your organization. So the first thing you have to do is really understand your organization. And by doing that, you have to look around at the types of individuals that succeed there. Do you fit? So part of maximizing your potential is having a plan. So look around at these individuals. What types of individuals succeed? What is their background? What is their personality? What impact are they having on the business? What do you see what do you see in their interactions? What kind of presentations do they make? And look at yourself and say, do I fit into this organization? Because that's number one. If you don't fit in an organization, you don't feel comfortable there, then obviously you have to look somewhere else. What risks or headwinds is your company facing? Are profits up? Are profits down? Are profits flat? Are they talking about potentially freezing any, headcount changes or anything like that? That will give you a good idea on whether this is or is not the time to expect either a raise or a promotion. It may also make you feel good that, okay, I understand that nothing can happen right now because we're going through a difficult time in the corporation or the firm. So, give you some leveling for yourself in that area. What does your department or your team's pipeline look like? And is there room for you? There's only so many positions in general companies with a pyramid. It's always pyramid shaped. So where are you in that line? Sit down and assess. Am I at the bottom? Am I in the middle? Did my boss just just attain their position, which means that it's going to take me forever to get to that next level? Or am I nowhere near a line that is going to eventually get me to where I want to go? And then part of that also has to do is, what attributes or behaviors do you see being rewarded either in the department, the company, or the firm? Those people that are being rewarded, or those people who you hear are, on the fast track, what attributes or behaviors do they have? Are those behaviors or attributes that you share? Are some of them are some of those attributes things you might need to learn? Perhaps having to take a class, or perhaps having to, bring a coach in or someone who can help you to obtain those. Again, your goal is to look at the large picture. And, Tina, do you have any comments on that macro level?
Yeah, I think those are really good points, Haydee, and along the lines of the factors that you've just outlined and some of the questions to ask yourself, I would just also add that it's really important that you also understand the company's sort of short-term and long-term strategic priorities. So where specifically are they going? What is the type of growth and what areas of growth? And is it organic or inorganic? And how can you look at it from the perspective of how legal can add value and drive those strategic initiatives? And then more importantly, how can you be proactive to demonstrate the role that you could play in enabling the strategy? So it's a little bit of forward vision. How would you sort of structure or evolve the legal department, and how can you almost make a business case for perhaps just at first doing that work on the side, but becoming a bit of an expert in that area and having business people be the pull on the additional value that legal can add, and perhaps how a role could evolve to a higher level, demonstrating that you need more resources, more support, and that you could really accelerate whatever those strategies might be. So I think that piece is really important. And then I think just thinking about at a macro level, as Haydee mentioned about, is it really the right fit? What do you love about the company? What do you love about the company's purpose? And if the path, you can't see a path that's clear, what other companies are there that you now know a lot about that industry and perhaps you like it? When I think about myself, what I loved about McDonald's, I love that it's consumer facing, that it has such a wide variety of, supply chain, operations, wide base of employees from first job to last job. And so when I was looking for what my next move might be, whether it was within McDonald's or outside, I was really focused on what are some of those things that I really enjoyed about my job, and wanted to ensure that my next company also served some of those higher purposes and had the same values that I really that really motivated me.
Thank you. And, in line with what you just said, Tina, I see a question. An individual wants to know, if a company is preserving cash and your manager has been pushing for my promotion for 2 cycles, is it worth it to negotiate at least a title change to launch the next step in my career? I say negotiate. I mean, I would always do that. Of course, remind them that you do expect to have, to be compensated for that change. But if they're working on it and it, certainly having the title would help you so that others start seeing you in that role. So I would definitely negotiate. Anything that's going to improve your position is something certainly you should look into.
Yeah, I agree. I think expanded responsibilities. So more than just a title change, but making sure that you really outline what are your expanded responsibilities, what will you have some decision-making authority or at least influence over going forward, but then equally not undervaluing yourself, being a little bit brave about, while it might not be the time for a raise, when is the next point in time that we can have this discussion? So rather than just, so can we revisit this in 6 months' time, so that it's not just, something that's not an expectation in terms of you having that conversation, which it sometimes takes a lot of courage, because it feels, we find it awkward. I don't know. It's sometimes hard. So.
It is. And excellent, because that leads me into what I would call it, when you're assessing your situation, you have the macro level, you're assessing your corporation, your law firm, your situation. And then the micro level is your personal situation. You really have to look at yourself, and you have to make decisions about your feelings about the organization, as Tina said earlier, and your role in that organization. First of all, look at today. Are you happy? Are you happy where you're at right now? Is the company fulfilling your professional needs? Are you getting the interesting assignments? Do you like your colleagues? Do you like your management? Because that's all very important. And if you don't, then you probably need to make a different assessment, but make that decision first. And if you say yes, then number two, are you happy in your current position? Do you like the work you're getting? Do you like the opportunities that could potentially come your way in the future? And if not, what would you change about your current situation? If you're not happy, you may not be contributing to the job or the organization at the highest level. Subconsciously, maybe, you may think you're giving it your all, but when someone's not happy, there's something going to give. And it may be the amount of time you devote to the job. It may be the amount of, the way you react to things. So, that's very important. And I think Tina might have said this as well. You really need to sit down. Maximizing your potential is something that only you can do for yourself. Sure, people have to give you the raise, they have to give you the promotion, but one of the things you really have to do is look at make a decision. What are your short-term goals, and what are those long-term goals? Short-term, I would say maybe 12 to 18 months. You say to yourself, here's what I want. And then long-term goals. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you want to be a general counsel. You really have to understand what that means long-term, right? What does a general counsel do? How does what I do today, how is that going to lead me to that path? How am I at interacting with top management, perhaps the board? What do I see the general counsel doing that I realize I lack, or there are certain areas of expertise I lack, and how can I get that? Certainly a general counsel has to understand securities laws and rules. If I don't have that, how can I gain that knowledge? So look at your short-term goals, see where they are at and where you stand in them, and then make those long-term goals. But you have to stick to it. This is not something you can just do and then say, okay, well, you know what, I'll sit around and wait till all this happens. You really need to make it a job. Your first job is to maximize your potential. Your second job is to do the job you're doing. And certainly, one very important thing, you have to be introspective. What have you been told about your performance? Now, many of us don't like to hear what we're told. But if there is if we're told the right way, there is opportunity for us to grow in what we are told. And that is what you need to cling to. Whatever they tell you which may differ from what you thought about yourself in the organization, you should look to ways that to figure out how you can change or improve on what they've told you. If they say you have a problem in communication, or you don't communicate as well as they would like, then you need to ask how, what, and then make a plan to change that. Tina, did you want to add anything on this? Or
Yeah. I think this is really critically important, particularly if you're sort of at a point that you're feeling a little bit frustrated. So I think two key things that Haydee said that you must own your own destiny. And especially you've had these conversations and you still feel frustrated, but equally as important is having self-awareness. And even if you're getting the feedback and you disagree with it, you don't think that it accurately reflects how hard you're working. You put all the time and the hours in, you've gotten so many successes. Having the realization that sometimes it's about perception as well. So if you're getting that feedback, that means someone perceives you in a way that you're not perceiving yourself. And you really have to dig a little bit deep, and it is hard. And I think one of the things that really helps is finding good allies and advocates that will be just absolutely give you the honest, candid feedback about what things you need to do in order to help change that perception, how you can get past that. And you do have to put in the work. And sometimes, even as lawyers, it's not that intuitive. It could mean that, you know, in times of peace, you're just scheduling chats for no reason with business people, just to get to know them. It's not really a normal thing that you're taught to do when you first become a lawyer, but that's what business people want to see: your curiosity, that your commercial savviness, that you're more than just a lawyer. And so, you know, have you really demonstrated that? You know that you have those skills, but what have you really done to make sure that everyone really sees that side of you? So I think that piece is really important. And then the second thing I would just add is about your performance review. So I think I look back at my younger years as a lawyer, particularly in-house, and, you know, lawyers have just never been good at this, giving performance reviews, because we're all highly educated professionals, and you go into a performance review and it turns into, you're amazing, you're doing an amazing job, you're doing so great, keep doing what you're doing. And there's not really a lot more than that sometimes. You know, great job on this case, great job on this matter. And sometimes, you know, and then it just turns into a chat. You need to go into your performance review with your own outline of points that you want to talk about. So after you get through your manager's performance review, then what do you want to talk about in terms? I want to discuss my career aspirations. And you need to be brave, and you kind of need to open yourself up to that and be humble and asking, what do you need to do to demonstrate that you're ready for the next level? Or is there more responsibility or projects you can work on to give yourself more exposure? And really asking for those opportunities, and showing that level of humility and openness, flexibility, to be for it to be more than just a straight promotion. And I think just putting that out there, that can really help you in those first steps.
Thank you. And, you know, I absolutely agree with that. And there was one comment you made right before that, was the fact that you need to be, you need to talk to your business people about business issues. So, for example, if you're in a meeting with a bunch of with business people, and you're perhaps the only lawyer, it's good for you to try and ask a business question or to contribute to the business discussion. You don't want them always thinking that you're only there to provide that legal advice. You want them to start looking at you as someone they can turn to for business advice as well. And then we have a number of questions, Tina. You know,
okay, great.
How do you approach the situation when you're looking for a promotion, but you are aware that your market value for the position is materially greater than what you're currently paid, and you'd like your salary adjusted to bring you closer to the market? How do you go about making the request, and what information is going to be best to provide you the backup to that request?
Yeah,
go ahead. You can take it. I can take it.
Sure. I mean, I think a couple things. I mean, you can research yourself what your market value is. So there is a lot of information out there to help you at least understand what that range is, but not just about base salary, but really looking at what's the value to the full package to you, depending on the phase that you are in your life. So and really thinking about what are all the aspects of particularly in an in-house position. You know, there are a number of components to your actual total compensation package. And so you need to look at that piece of it and decide, well, if you can't get the salary that you want, are there other aspects of compensation that are longer term that could maybe close that gap for you? And just getting a little bit creative about it, I think, is one thing. The second thing is that I think HR is getting more transparent about these types of things. Every single job that we have now, we do external benchmarking, even when we do internal promotions. So there is data that the company has gathered in order to determine what's the right level. I mean, I myself take that data from HR and I look at where lawyers sit within their years of experience, their how long have they been a lawyer, how long they've been with the company, how long have they had in-house versus law firm experience, and kind of make sure that it fits fairly within the rest of the team. And so having and I try and be transparent about it. So I think HR is getting more comfortable about sharing that type of benchmarking as well.
And if your company does, and if you do have that information, like the BarkerGilmore salary guide, it never hurts to bring facts in when discussing your request for an increase in pay with your boss. But as Tina said, it is a full package. So if they can't give you that extra pay, maybe you can negotiate an extra week's vacation, or maybe you can negotiate a different, a reward they could give you, something that might not impact your salary itself, but will at least give you the satisfaction that you are getting more than what you were before, especially since you feel that you realize and know that you're underpaid. There's another one here about the BG salary guide and what strategies might we suggest to identify our market value for discussions, especially if they have different attributes like a specialty focus in legal, MBA, compliance, and large company global experience. I think I'll start with that. Certainly,
yep.
I mean, your market value, if you know, there are industry benchmarks, there are salary guides, there are salary benchmarks. And I think what you need to do is just look at those and figure out where you fit. Having things like an MBA, having things like those special certifications at a specialty, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But when you have if you're a subject matter expert, you have to make sure that that is valued in the organization, and you'll know it's valued when people start asking you questions about that topic because of your expertise. So you need to leverage everything you have. Of course, you package it in a nice little package in a box when you go to talk to whoever's responsible for increasing your salary or giving you that next promotion. But use all the details, all the facts you can. So another one, when it's considering external opportunity, how do you suggest preparing for an interview for a first-time C-suite role? Now you might be able to answer this one, Tina. Is there a list of questions BG can share? Do you have suggestions on how to position yourself as more of a strategic executive than a worker bee? So when you're looking for an outside, how do you suggest preparing for an interview for a first-time C-suite role? I think you did that, Tina.
Yes. I mean, how much time do we have? We could talk about this. So there are a lot of great guides out there that definitely I did leverage in looking at and reading articles and information in order to prepare, reading absolutely everything on the company's website, top to bottom. So studying every single person who you're going to interview with and what their backgrounds are. So, I mean, I guess this is a little bit of the low hanging fruit, but I think that the real key to those kinds of interviews, and this is kind of leads into what we're going to talk about next. You need to be able to demonstrate with real life examples of where you took a leadership position and that you were brave, that you are not afraid to challenge convention, that you're going to push back, demonstrating your business savvy. And this is just another point about that we talked about a little bit earlier. If you understand the financials of the business, that will be that, and you're able to weave that in and demonstrate that you understand how legal fits into that, but then also how risk mitigation and safeguards, et cetera, can help drive revenue. That's really, really important. So the leadership skills, and we should take a few more questions so we can move into that section, or yeah.
Why don't you start with that? There are some additional questions, but why don't you start with the leadership skills, and then since that's part of that question, and we can pick up on a couple more in a few.
Yeah. So this is just, I really wanted to make sure that we got to this point, which is around assessing your own leadership skills. And the reason I think this is so important and can be difficult is because as lawyers, we're not only taught, during law school, but then our whole legal careers, particularly in law firms, we become absolute technical subject matter experts. And in a lot of cases where you go in-house, you're sitting at your desk and you're waiting for business people to come to you and ask you to give them the sound advice based on your expertise. The next level, getting to the next level, is really about being a leader. And there's a lot of really great, smart lawyers, but not everyone has strong leadership skills. Some people are just natural leaders, but maybe don't have all of the skills. So again, you need to really, and here's just a few things that when I say, what does it mean to be a great leader? You need to look at yourself and say, are you actually able to influence business people and get them to a point that they just absolutely trust you? That level of influence demonstrates your ability to lead. Are you motivating your colleagues and your team members and your business clients? So motivating people to want to work collaboratively, to understand that we're all in it together, providing a safe space for everyone to share their views and perspectives. That's what leadership is. It's not necessarily the technical side of it. Giving credit and recognition to other people for the job that they did and how successful they were, business people as well as your legal colleagues. Being diplomatic and empathetic, understanding your audience and being able to adjust yourself to those dynamics, holding people accountable, staying calm in a crisis. That's why exposure, I think, within the organization is so important, because those are the kind of soft skills that you need to demonstrate in order for people to feel like, okay, this is someone who can lead a team and really get things done. And I think that the final point I will make is just about being able to create an inclusive culture where other people really, really enjoy working with you and for you. And that message definitely will translate, and it doesn't come from you. It comes from other people talking about how great you are. And I think that really is the piece that can get you to that next level within your organization, and equally during it, and being able to have those examples during an interview for the next level job, even if it's at another company.
Thank you, Tina. Absolutely. And for those of you thinking, well, how do I figure out what my leadership skills are? There are assessment tools, and I would recommend you have an assessment done, either a 360 review, a Hogan assessment. Your company or firm may have those tools. Take advantage of them and read them, but read them for understanding, because I've had clients that have had those Hogan reviews, those 360s, and then when I come to coach them, I find that it's the same issues are still there. The same opportunities that were identified in their 360s are still being, are still in need of assistance. So take those seriously, know yourself, acknowledge those opportunities, always solicit feedback. After a project asked, how was it? Is there a way I could have improved that? If you give a speech, you can ask the individual who led the meeting, is there a way I could have, improved on that? Solicit feedback, continuous feedback. Understand the perceptions of individuals have of you in the organization. I think Tina mentioned that. And then she mentions one thing, which I think is very critical, is know your risk tolerance. The famous Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Taking a risk in an organization can be scary. It's scary to move to Europe, as Tina did. It's scary to try something new in an area you've never explored before. But doing those types of things will, indicate that you're willing to learn, you're willing to take a chance. And if you're successful in the role, as Tina was in hers, you then have individuals who become your champions, both in other parts of the world, in other departments. And as Tina said, you really need those individuals when the time comes for discussions about, increases or promotions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's those are really good points, and I think kind of leads to along the lines of one of the questions that was asked about getting, negotiating for higher pay and changing your title. Another strategy, I think, is to also ensure that you are putting yourself out there to take lateral opportunities, even if they're even if it's going from litigation to real estate, just to stretch and learn, and also just to make sure that you're on people's radar, that this is what you want to do. You want to make sure that you do have a wide breadth of experience and that you can easily flex. I find a lot of young lawyers very hesitant to step outside of being a real estate lawyer. It was like a real estate lawyer is also a commercial transaction. You can really probably, just really look at yourself. You can do anything. And I think it's, lawyers sometimes underestimate what their actual ability is and a little bit of fear as to whether or not you're going to be successful in it. But there's particularly in-house, I think, there's a lot of support for giving people the opportunity to do some different things. And it really does show your ambition a little bit. The other thing is that when there is a job that you think there's a clear front runner and they're just going to get the role, it's still worth it to say, look, I'm interested in it. Could I at least just interview? It hones your interviewing skills. It shows that you're open to new opportunities, and who knows what might happen next. There might be another, people really appreciate that level of curiosity and want to make sure that you're successful as well. And if, like Haydee said at the beginning, sometimes in-house, the opportunities for advancement are quite limited. So you've got to get a little bit creative.
Thank you. And so there are a couple of questions. It's similar vein here. Do courses and certifications have market value to develop skills or show exposure to areas of less exposure in the current role? And they give a couple of examples. And then is there a value in certification programs? So, there are, and one of them said there's so many certification out there. Well, I guess I would start by saying, number one, get a certification in an area that is hot. You read the papers, read the business journals, know where the business, where companies are focused on. So for example, cybersecurity is huge right now. Privacy is very big. Certifications in those areas are special. If your industry has a particular type of, certification that is very important, as if it's banking and you have some banking certifications that you should get, then you should get those. It never, I'm a firm believer in continuing education, in continuing developing yourself, even if it isn't just so that you feel good about the fact that you have knowledge in an area. Do you have any other comments on that, Tina? Or?
Yes, I mean, privacy is a great example. And it kind of goes back to what I said about having a strategic vision for yourself going forward. So what's the next thing? So privacy's, started to bubble up 5-7 years ago. And then, people who were passionate about it and interested in it started to become experts in it. And then it developed into data governance and data management. And what are we going to do with all this customer data and security of data? And so that created a niche. But if you had that vision 5 years ago, you're now a chief privacy officer, which most companies have added. So when you look at your company's strategic priorities and their vision for growth over the next 5 years, what are some of the areas that you want to be able to say, a year from now, you're an expert in, so that you can leverage that as even a way that you might want to suggest that the legal department start to evolve. Legal departments need to evolve almost every 2 years in order to keep up with the business strategies. So I think it's a really good point.
Yes, thank you. And in line with that, another question is, can you have too many years in the number 2 position in an in-house legal department? In other words, if you don't move from deputy general counsel or assistant GC to general counsel after 5 to 6 years, could this be an impediment to obtaining a GC position somewhere else? Well, I guess, I could start with that and you can add, Tina. I guess I would say the first thing is, are you happy in that role? Is that role, are you still learning in that role? Do you still have some things to learn before you can officially say, boy, I feel comfortable being a GC? If you're unhappy and you feel like you know enough to be a GC and it's just not happening because maybe the individual who's there isn't moving anytime soon, you probably should start exploring at a minimum what's out there. Maybe you don't get it, maybe you do. Again, we have to weigh so many things. Is it the company I like? Is the people I like? Is management I like? Am I going to leave for what could be the grass, thinking the grass is greener somewhere else, and then not being happy? So it's a difficult decision. It's difficult for us to say you need to leave because there's so many factors in it. But Tina, if you have a comment.
Yeah, just similar. I agree. It's really, are you getting the opportunities that still make you feel valued, make you feel like you're having an impact in the areas that you actually care about? And then back to assessing, it's kind of, yes, the grass is always greener. Assessment you need to make for yourself is also about thinking about, how do you like your boss? Who your boss is so critical. And so if you've got an amazing boss who's giving you all those opportunities, and sometimes it's just and you really love the job and you love the company and your team is great, then maybe it's not, maybe it's more about having a discussion about, are you actually being paid within the market? Because sometimes when you've been in a role for a long time, companies will only pay you what they have to. It's just, that's just good business. So you might need to advocate for yourself in that regard.
Exactly. A couple more questions, but before we get to those, why don't we talk a little bit about tips for actually maximizing your earning potential beyond those we've already provided, which I think are great. Obviously, once you've assessed your current macro and micro situation, your skills and your leadership potential, you should be able to decide if you're on the right track to improve your position in your organization, your firm. The following, I'm going to just give you some ways that you might, determine the potential opportunities. First of all, I'm a big believer in someone establishing a personal brand. What does that mean? In your organization, and I think I said this earlier, if you have established yourself as the go-to person for a particular need in the company or the firm, then you are becoming an expert. And becoming an expert puts you apart from all the other individuals in the same place, in the same level, in the same organization. So, just an example, at McDonald's, NGOs would constantly challenge us about the content of our food products. And one of the attorneys on the team decided to delve into food science and become a food lawyer. Now, she didn't have any of that experience before, but she saw how important it was to the company because of the pressure we were receiving from outside organizations. So ultimately, she became indispensable to the company in that way. And she became an expert in an area that she was the only one who had that skill. So, definitely, enhance your personal brand, establish your brand, become an expert. Know your worth in the market. I think we've had a couple of questions about that. What am I worth? How long, Tina said, how long have I been out of school? What are people making in other companies? And you have to also remember that companies' pay scales depend upon the size of the company, right? Small companies can't necessarily afford to pay you what a large company would pay. So if you're interested in that type of a change, then maybe you're interested in a larger organization. And one very important thing I think Tina already mentioned, but if you wanted to expand on it, was this volunteer for other opportunities. I think you did that. You mentioned that was a absolute catalyst to additional changes. I did the same in my career.
Yep.
Volunteer for speaking engagements. Again, the goal is to become known, and become known not only in your firm, but outside. You go to a conference and there are 100, 200, 300 people in that room. They will listen to you. And then subsequently, you might meet somebody in the future who say, hey, I saw you speak, and I've had that happen to me. I saw you speak at the Society of Corporate Compliance, or I saw you speaking at Association of Corporate Counsel conference. And people, they think about that. And if you ever want an opportunity at a different firm, again, that's all part of your continuing marketing of yourself in a way that is meaningful, and where you're going to have some meaning for your personal gratitude as well. And then I think you said networking. I mean, we talk about that all the time, but Tina, please add to that.
Yeah, I think when you think about networking, first of all, it's hard to fit into your schedule. I mean, just to be honest, it can be hard. So looking at it holistically, almost developing a plan for yourself that it's internal and external. So internally, when you're mapping out your stakeholders and developing an engagement plan for yourself, think about your current role, who your stakeholders were, but also the role that you aspire to attain. Who would your new stakeholders be? And how can you, in times of peace, be developing relationships with those people, and then take the time to develop those relationships?
Thank you. So I've had a question here. This individual says, I've had the opposite experience where I'm willing to stretch, but a company says I don't have the skills they're looking for. How do I convince them to take a chance on me? First of all, I guess I would first say, well, tell them what you can do. Tell them what you know. Tell them about those courses you've taken. Again, sell yourself. If they still feel that you're still hearing that, then you need to say to them, okay, well, tell me, what do you think I need to do to be able to do that? Again, seek feedback. I think we mentioned that before. Seek feedback from the individuals. I think they would be, they can.
Yeah. How about joining the working team of that project as opposed to leading it then, so that you can demonstrate your value? How about just sitting in and being an observer? I'm just curious. I want to learn about this. I'll just be a fly on the wall and I'll just be quiet. Can find someone that's on the team and see if they'll invite you as their guest and just introduce you. And then that's it. You're just trying to learn about it. So that's that can be challenging. There are a lot of politics and dynamics within companies. It's not easy to navigate. So you're not alone.
When looking for external opportunities, they're seeking managerial experience. How do you explain that you've been informally managing the paralegals, even though they technically aren't your direct reports? And how do you strongly make the case internally in a flat organization that they should in fact report to you when you are the SME who supports them on a daily basis and are the only one who can accurately assess their knowledge and skills? So first of all, if you're indirectly managing them, informally managing them, I would say managing them. I'm indirectly managed. They may not directly report to me, but I do manage them. So you are managing people, even though they may not have that direct line. Many organizations do have dotted lines, and they're just as important as those solid lines.
Yeah. Do you feed into their performance reviews? So hopefully people are getting your feedback as well to feed into their performance reviews. And then I think, if you're really looking at what can you do to sort of accelerate and give yourself that direct people management responsibility, try to take it small and slow. Ask for one paralegal to report to you. Not all the paralegals maybe, but when you're talking to your line manager, hey, as you're looking at the structure and we are evolving and looking at the business needs for next year, I would really like the opportunity to have some experience in managing people and having that direct responsibility. And I think you can ask. You can always ask.
Thank you. So there was a question about someone wants us to tell them more about BG coaching services. And I guess I'd just say to that person, if you don't mind, at the end, you're going to see my email and Brittany's email. And, please email us. I think we can give you a little more information on what our services we can provide. A question about, is it harmful to stand still for several years while taking care of parents or raising young children? Is there an expiration date by which companies will think you waited too long to seek a GC role? I had a client who did stand still for a few years to raise her children. And frankly, she kept abreast of what was going on in the industry that she's in, which is a very technical industry. So you will not grow stale if you can still speak the language, depending upon where you worked. Of course, you know what you did there. And then while you're out, how you're still staying informed and what your opinion is on what's going on in that area. And I think, I don't know that
I was going to say, yeah,
go ahead.
I love that we've evolved to a place where that should always be respected. And if it's not, it's probably not a company you want to work at, because that just tells you, to me, what the culture is going to be like. So, and I think great companies are really starting to recognize that keeping great employees requires an appreciation for the work-life balance and all of the things that we have to do outside of work in order to be really great at our jobs. So
Exactly. So, here's a question I think fits for you also, Tina. What do you look for in a GC role to make sure it is a good opportunity for you? How would you consider that when you were going into Meijer?
Yes, I would say so. Number one, that the CEO inspires you. Their vision, what are they trying to accomplish? What do they stand for? What are the values of the company? And how is that reflected from the CEO? So I think that is just really, really important. And it just tells you a lot about what your job is going to be like. And having that connection, that was the critical thing that was at the top of my list. And not everyone, and it's back to the coaching. I had a coach, and my coach really, really helped me in preparing myself for that, but really examining what were the things that were going to be important, because it was a big decision. I absolutely loved working at McDonald's, and the decision I needed to make was only for myself. It was just about my own aspirations and my own point in my career. And so really focusing on that was really, really important. I think the other thing was is something I mentioned before, was about, I just really thrive on a variety of work, a growth strategy, that there's going to be new. I like change, and that the company is open to, while it may be steeped in history, it's still open to and has opportunity for modernization, getting into the digital age. What does that look like? And then what is when you talk about ESG, I think ESG really is about, what's the people proposition? What are the scores? What are employees saying about that company? Not just at the top, but all the way down to the bottom. And just just a good way to understand the culture, the actual culture, and how people are being treated. And I think those are the critical things.
Thank you. Yeah. And it is, as you said, Tina, it is a very personal thing. It is
Yep.
And the one comment you made was very important, and you have to enjoy the CEO you're going to work with, because you will work closely with that CEO. And so that was critical, and obviously it's working out for you. Does BG coach individual contributors before moving to the director or executive level? The answer is yes. And of course, as I said at the end, you'll see some emails you can follow up with us. How do you approach negotiating your salary with a promotion? Are there any resources you suggest using a gauge pay scales benefits? Well, I don't, most companies have pay scales, right? They do. And I know that at McDonald's, they were available to everyone. So we knew what the ranges were for the roles. And again, negotiating a salary has a lot to do with what you bring to the table. You can't just say, I want a raise. You have to explain, what you've done to deserve that raise. How you have contributed to the organization. And one very important thing we haven't talked about yet, but it's part of the tips, is you have to understand the strategies and the initiatives of the company. And you have to be able to assess whether you are contributing to those strategies, because those are the people that they will look to when they're looking to promote someone who has actually contributed to the growth of the organization, to improving the bottom line, to saving money. And as lawyers, you can do that. Just have to position it the right way. So maybe you're in litigation and you say, how do I prove a negative? I mean, you never know who's going to sue the company. And so how many lawsuits did you avoid, right? You can't just say, well, here's you can't monetize that, because if you're doing a good job, you'll never know. But if you're in litigation, you say, I did save the company money because I could have negotiated that settlement for $1 million. And I negotiated it for $500,000. I know the company was willing to pay $1 million, but I got it for $5 million. Again, you're saving the company money. There's an impact to what you're doing to the strategies and the initiatives of the company. So, keep that in mind when you're looking for a raise or anything like that. If you're moving laterally within in-house legal, should you try to negotiate a salary increase? Sure. I say yes. I said, yes, try. I mean, again, it has to be based on fact. Why? What are you going to be doing now in this lateral position that would warrant the increase? Is it something they really want you to do because, boy, we could really use you? Then maybe you say, well, okay, you can really use me. Maybe you can leverage the fact that they really want you. If it's something you're doing to learn, you have to make that decision. Should I take, if they don't give it to you, negotiate something else? Remember we talked about, how about a week vacation? How about, an extra tip or something else you can leverage? When a GC position reports into the CFO as opposed to the CEO, is that a red flag? Does that necessarily mean that the management has a negative or underappreciative view of the legal function? I wouldn't say that. But
I say, yeah.
But
I
what
say,
I can say is
Yep.
that I think it's a red flag. Number one, I believe that as a compliance officer, there is a conflict of interest that can be built in having your CFO, who's responsible for the finances of a company, overseeing the very person who is there to ensure that the things are done legally, according to the law, the rules. And so I find that to be a red flag. But Tina?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much a red flag, as long as you can outline expectations around it. So I've actually had both, and actually both within McDonald's, different structures, even within different business units. So Haydee's exactly right. When it comes to the compliance piece, it's sort of, yes, fine, reporting to the CFO, that's fine, as long as everybody understands that with regard to compliance, I report directly to the CEO or to the board, frankly, and having that access and making sure that everyone understands that that's an expectation of yours with regard to that reporting line. I mean, sometimes it just, because of the way businesses are developing, I think people come up with these structures because the CEO, frankly, just has too many direct reports. So,
Yes.
If you're not the only one, then it may not, be a red flag. Sometimes it could be that some companies have chief administrative officer where legal, finance, and HR all report into someone who then reports to the CEO. I mean, there's a lot of different structures. So I try not to get, as long as I'm clear about what my expectations are and my access to the CEO needs to be, I'm not so precious about the reporting lines. So that's my
Good
yeah.
point. Thank you. One thing we did mention, and again, I'm going to say it again, be a student of the business. I think we were going to discuss that. Be a student of the business. You have to really understand the business, even in your legal role. That will always set you apart from other individuals.
Reporting to the CFO might be a really great way to be able to do that, frankly, because I think, as I always say, I agree about really being curious and having a really deep understanding of the business is critical. But if you have any financial prowess, savviness, and I have to study hard to understand the financials because I'm just not a financial whiz, but I understand how important it is to at least understand the financials of the company itself. And then what are the levers that actually really impact, those key financial matrix that we focus on. And so developing a close relationship with the CFO regardless, and not being embarrassed about asking questions that might seem like, you should know it. It's just, I think it's really important.
Absolutely. You have to know how your company makes money, or your firm. That is critical. That is the bottom line. That is why we're all in business. That's why we work for companies. That's why they exist. So you should, even as a lawyer, understand what that P&L looks like and why it's important to the organization and where she just said the levers are. A couple more questions, although I think it looks like we're getting towards the end here. I hate to my manager's leaving the company and it was replaced by someone new. Had my manager stayed, I would likely receive a promotion in the near future. How do I not lose the momentum while we wait my manager's role to be filled? Well, I think, you know, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think at this point, you probably have to wait a bit. You know, sometimes we do have to be patient with where we're going. But you know, I would approach the new manager once the individual's there. I don't know if you have any other tips on that.
The tip I would say is schedule time with the person that person is going to report to. You know, develop your own brand. Go, you know, while that interim or that gap is there, you know, there is nothing wrong with you going then, and if they report to the CEO, they're going to report to the CEO, the CFO, or someone in the C-suite. Just get the 30 minutes to just have a chat. I love working here. You know, you know, these are the things that are going to be important to me. I know you guys are looking for someone new to report, you know, to fill that role. There's nothing wrong with sharing your view and your perspective about that change.
So thank you, Tina. And, you know, I'm sorry, it looks like we're out of time. This has been a wonderful session. I certainly have enjoyed, you know, listening to Tina. And I appreciate everyone, all the questions. They were outstanding questions, and I wish we could continue on. But, you know, at this time, I think I'll just turn it over. Thank you again, Tina, very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
And turn over to Brittany, and thank you, everyone.
Haydee and Tina, thank you so much. That was fantastic. So much practical advice. I'm confident everyone on here left with some great takeaways. Thank you to the audience, amazing participation. We'd love to hear from you if we can help with the executive search side. If you need to hire a strategic, legal, or compliance hire, please reach out. If you're interested in learning about our coaching and advising services, please reach out. And if you just want to get on our radar as far as career opportunities or discuss state of the market, please reach out. We look forward to hearing from you and looking forward to seeing many of you back here next month. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.